Hello everyone. So today I would like to talk about conditional sentences. Unit 27, conditional sentences. In the previous video, we talked about the first two types of conditionals, and today I would like to focus on another type of conditional, which is conditional type 2. Okay, the second conditional. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at how and when it is used. Okay, so for conditional type 2, it's very different, okay, from conditional types 0 and 1. I hope that you still remember, okay? So when we use conditional type 1, so we use conditional type 1, okay? So for real present, if the present situation is real, and that's why the future will be possible. And then for conditional type 2, it's actually the opposite of it, okay? It's just the opposite, okay, of the present situation. And that's why we call it unreal present. For the present situation, it's not real. It's not real. If the present situation, if you cannot fulfill the present condition, the future should be impossible. Okay, impossible here. So we use conditional type 2 to talk about something that is not true or that is not real in the future, because the present is not real, and that's why the future won't be real. Okay, so let's take a look at these two examples here. If I hired a car, I would take you for a ride around town. Okay, so why do we use conditional type 2 here? Because this is the present situation. Okay, so for the present situation, I don't have a car. Okay, I don't have a car. And that's why, okay, so this is just based on my imagination. If I had a car, and then I would take you for a ride around. However, the real situation is that I don't have a car. So what about the second example sentence here? So first of all, he doesn't know that something. He doesn't know that something. And that's why if he knew, we would ask him. Okay? So let's take a look at, okay, the form of it. So for the if clause here, so I hope that you still remember, okay? So which tense we use for conditional type 1, okay, in the if clause. So for conditional type 1, in the if clause, and then we are using simple present tense, okay, because the present situation is real. But then for conditional type 2, if the present situation is not real, and then we have to use simple past tense. Past simple means simple past, okay, so simple past tense here. And then for the future is impossible, and that's why for the main clause, okay, for the future, okay, for the result, and then we are using would plus a verb. Would plus a verb. Let's take a look at this example here. So this is the real situation. I am very busy, and that's why I cannot help you at the moment. Okay, and that's why, okay, in this case, and then we have to use conditional type 2 to talk about this imaginary situation. Actually, it's kind of imaginary. It's kind of an imaginary situation, okay? Because the reality is that I'm very busy now, and that's why if I had time, simple past tense, I would help you. We use the would plus a bare infinitive here because for this future, it's impossible. Okay, it's impossible. But then I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying that like if I had time, I would help you. Okay. So let's take a look at some very special points that you have to get to know. The first one is if we want to talk about possible results or possible abilities, especially for abilities, okay? So, and the results here. So besides using would, basically we use would plus a verb, but it's also okay to use might plus a verb or could plus a verb. If you asked him, okay, there's no change in the if clause. We are still using simple past tense. He might help you. There is a possibility that he would help you. If you told me more, I could give you some advice. So this is about my ability, okay? So which means, okay, so you can actually work out, from these two example sentences using conditional type 2, okay, so there are type 2 conditionals. So from these two example sentences, you can actually work out the reality, just like the first one, okay? If you asked him, he might help you, okay, which means you don't plan to ask him. So this is the real situation. I don't plan to ask him, okay? And that's why, like, if I don't plan to ask him, how can he give me any answer? And that's why for this imaginary, like, a situation, so if you asked him, he might help you. All right? And then for this one, if you told me more, so this is the conditional type 2 sentence here. So which means for the reality, you don't tell me anything. Okay, you just don't tell me anything. Okay, and that's why there is nothing that I can't help you with anything, because you don't tell me anything. And that's why if you told me more, I could give you some advice. Okay? And then for another one here, okay, so another thing that you have to get to know is, so this is a very special, okay, this is a very special use of the word here. So for the if clause, in the formal written and speech, we are using were. Can you see whether here? So even though we are talking about whether, which means it, basically we have to use was, right? Okay, but then for conditional type 2, for the if clause, if the main verb that we have to use is be, usually we are making it were, because we are writing something or speaking very formally. If the weather were fine today, okay, we would go, this is the short form, so we would go to the beach, okay? And of course, in less formal context, so we are still using was with I, he, she, and it. Okay, with I, he, she, and it. And of course, it's also okay that you use were here, weren't here in this case. If I wasn't so tired, I would go with you. So it's less formal, maybe you're talking to your friends. Okay, but if this is a very formal, situation, a formal setting, so we are using were. And the negative form weren't. Okay, if I weren't so tired, I would go with you. And so for this case, so this is something I'm putting a star here because I'm highlighting this one because we are always using this sentence pattern to give advice. If I were you, okay, I would do something. If I were you, I would do something. If I were someone else, I would do something. Okay, if you're asking for advice, okay, so if you were me, if you really want to get advice from others, so usually you start with if you were me, so what would you do? If you were me, would you do something? If you were me, would you take his offer? If you were me, would you buy that dress? Okay, if you were me, so what would you do? All right? Okay, so I hope that you have a better understanding of the usages together with the forms, okay, of conditional type 2. Thank you.